Oh, right. What do I say on these things? I've forgotten. Hello, I suppose. It's been a long while since I've done one of these nice streams, but decided to today. It is a wonderful Sunday. Hope you're having a very blessed day. Of course, it is Lent. It is the time of year where us Christians reflect on the time that Jesus spent in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone in the chat. Got 27 people viewing. Not too bad for the first stream on this channel. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I should probably do Spanish, shouldn't I? That's what people tend to do. Yeah, so I'll do Spanish quickly. You know what, Aussie, you can have a spanner. This is enticing viewing already, isn't it, fellas? I should probably introduce everyone. Oh shit, getting echo. Pause that. Right, you know what, Phil, you can have a spanner as well. You know, Faust, he can have a spanner. Big Faust. Gotta love my Dutch friend. He's not my friend, but I've met him once. Right, up to 74. You can have a spanner. Right, okay. Let's introduce everyone on the panel. We've already lost 5 viewers. we're continuing as we mean to go on. So it's a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous going around the thing, isn't it? Like, hello, my name's Stephen. I've been sober for 6 months. No laughs for that one. All right, start as we mean to go on. We got Louis here. Hello, Louis. Thanks for coming on.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
We've got Elizabeth here.
Hello.
Yeah, great introduction to everyone. And we've also got TSG.
That strawberry guy. Hello.
Yeah, very good. Does some good streams. Make sure you check him out. Link will be in the description when I can be bothered to put it in there.
Many thanks, by the way. Many thanks.
Many thanks. He's very good. Lots of interesting sort of philosophy stuff. I think you did Adam Smith today. Very interesting character. He had a lot of things that people can learn from. Obviously, he was one of the early mercantilists. But yeah, he was a liberal, to be fair. But I mean, he defended order, defended tradition. So is fine in my books. And capitalism, obviously, is a system that is to an extent unavoidable. So we've gone round. We've done the introduction now. So it's on to the first story, which is Nigel Farage has resigned from the Reform Party, obviously the party that was rebranded from the Brexit Party quite recently. Oh, hello everyone in the chat. We've got Old Albion, Gentleman Adam, big up Adam. We got Phil, we got Sojourner, hello Sojourner, absolute legend, 74 gang, rising always.
I'll be back in a
Those people won't understand what that is, but no. Yeah, so Nigel Farage. Anyone got any thoughts on Nigel Farage at all? We'll go to Louis first, I guess.
I think he's just head off somewhere. He's got to go to the loo quickly.
All right, we'll go to Strawberry Guy first. What's your thoughts on Nigel Farage, generally speaking, and also on him leaving?
Well, he's kind of had his run, hasn't he? At this point, that's my 2 cents. Really, he was big when Brexit was a thing. He pressured for it through UKIP. He has continued it a bit longer than necessary, and yeah, now he's just dropped out. I think he's sort of done his bit, as it were.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's sort of 2 takes that people have on Farage, isn't there? There's sort of the people that think that he's like a what's the word? Like a sort of a stop valve for like patriotic feeling, right? Which is a view that I can understand to an extent, but I think he does have a sort of within him sort of a general sort of I'll give Jord a spanner. Epic content already. He does within him have a sort of like, I don't know, patriotic feeling. I think deep down he is sort of generally a nationalistic person. I think he has obviously fought very hard for this country in the European Parliament. Obviously got paid for it as well, to be fair to him. But he's lost out on a lot of opportunities and things in life, and obviously his family life was totally ruined. I think people will remember when he was in that pub and with his kids, and just like loads of the lefties just came and like sort of like insulted him and his kids. Really horrible, really mean, and it's a sign of a fading civility in politics. Sort of like a flame underneath the thing, and all the sort of particles are moving very quickly. It's a bit of a Newtonian thing, but there we go.
Pressure cooker sort of thing, you mean?
Yeah, it's you know, things are heating up in politics, aren't they? So yeah, that's my thoughts on Farage. Genuine patriot. may not be in line with me on some other issues. For example, obviously he was a metals trader. He's a bit of a Thatcherite, not necessarily a Thatcherite, but generally overall pretty fine guy. Obviously he's left politics now. I think I'll say it here first. I think that he was very, very enthusiastic, spoke in very, very professional terms on his Twitter account and places like that. And I think he obviously he did the rebrand of Reform UK, obviously, and I think perhaps there has been some backroom dealings with him and Boris Johnson in order for him not to run in 2024. Maybe he'll get in the House of Lords soon. Maybe he'll get a knighthood soon. We'll see. That's a prediction that I'm making, but maybe not. So we'll continue around the panel. Elizabeth, any thoughts on Nigel Farage at all?
I think he's a great man. When I see Nigel Farage, I see a man who truly cares about the people, which isn't something we see with many politicians. Most politicians are careerists. They're only in it for themselves, only in it to benefit, their pockets. And Nigel, he's the main reason we got Brexit. He's the main reason we got the referendum, and he's done a lot for the anti-migrant campaign as well. He has some real courage. I have a lot of respect for Nigel Farage, even if he is a bit of a Thatcherite, I guess you could say.
Yes, a fair take. Louis, any thoughts on Nigel Farage?
No, not really. No real thoughts to add, to be honest. Nothing that I can say that is grounded in anything I've read about him. I've heard bits and bobs, but I'm not best person to ask on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I don't know. He's someone that I think even within sort of like more like, I suppose, patriotic or dissident right-wing spheres, he's someone who divides opinion to an extent. You've got sort of the more, I guess you could say, the sort of more moderate or more, sort of more optics crowd. To be honest, I've never particularly cared about optics. It's just more like what you believe and separating yourself from people that believe things that you don't believe. But among the sort of optics crowd, he's very, very popular. And again, he did sort of inspire inspire sort of patriotic feelings, certainly in this country. Next thing, I didn't get up because I have not prepared for this stream. It is not good. I hope she hasn't deleted the tweet, because that would just ruin the entire thing. Anyway, I could say that some like lefty guy called me a Nazi today.
How did you achieve that?
Wait, what happened?
Oh, is this guy called what's his name? I'll get Brian's tweet. Professional experience, everyone. Right. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm really curious as to how you got how you got this label attached to you today by a lefty.
Was it in the street or was it on social media?
It was on Twitter. Yeah.
Oh well, it's not relevant then, is it? Really? Let's be honest.
It was this guy that I did a response to his like video a long time ago. It's just like basically he was just saying loads of stuff that's like, he was like, well, the UK is like really racist, or like UK is like really discriminatory, and he sort of like made all these points or whatever. But I think the main point I just said in it is just like, all this stuff is like, why should we care? Why should we care what, like, I don't accept the use of the term. Obviously, Roger Scruton, someone who I like very, very much, obviously said it was a word of power, racism, right? It's something that is used as a sort of battering ram against people with sort of more conservative or patriotic sentiments, right? So that's my view on that. I just don't really accept the use of the term. So
it's very abused, quite obviously.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I suppose, like right wingers. Guys, can we be optical in the chat, please? Guys. Guys, I mean, I think like right wingers often believe in left wing concepts to an extent, but just have different definitions of them. So right wingers do believe in things like political correctness, for example, because we think it should be like politically incorrect to like promote, like, I suppose, transgenderism. We think that should be politically incorrect to promote, like degeneracy and things like that. And obviously left wingers have their own definitions.
Talking about the word racist, I've just looked it up. I think this is obviously where I might be useful in the etymology department, but it's the word racist. It comes from 1932. Comes from the word is an adjective form in 1938. It comes from the word race, noun, with a prefix. I think it's a prefix, ist at the end of it. It was in use by 1928, that being racism, originally in context of fascist theories and coming from 1936. These words replaced earlier racialism 1882 and racialist 1910, both often used in early 20th century in a British or South African context.
Mhm.
I did actually know a bit of that, but I didn't know it was exclusively British and South African context that was used. Kind of makes sense because of the, I suppose, kind of makes sense because of the abolitionist movement coming about in Great Britain, and obviously, well, I would suppose something to do with apartheid sort of coming unstitched at the time in South Africa.
Yeah, I think I don't know. People often come up with the sort of like, I guess you could say, the meme in the Richard Dawkins sense that you know, the meme of racism, I suppose. That's sort of people say, well, it was invented by the communists to use, and, against like people with right wing patriotic sentiments, right? So it's used by, that's what they claim. Obviously, I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of truth in that. People come up with this stuff about like Frankfurt School, don't they? But to be honest, like I'm not a big believer in like conspiracies necessarily, unless it can be like pretty solidly proven. I think often it can be better explained by sort of like, I suppose an example I would make is like fuel companies. They always sort of like have around about the same prices, right? But there's not like an agreement where they have to have all the same prices. It's just they know if one of them raises their prices or lowers their prices, then it will give, other companies will have to react the same way. So because they're happy with prices the way they are, they don't want to raise them or lower them because they know everyone else will just do the same. They keep the prices where they are, even if there's not a fundamental agreement. And I think often modernity is that. I think it's often just people acting in their interests. I don't think it's necessarily like a company.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I think it's quite interesting that you say, racism's became a left-wing word. It's kind of like the context of the Red Scare, McCarthyism. That obviously, communism is inherently bad, but it was so overly abused during that era that it kind of lost its meaning, and a lot of innocent people got accused. I suppose you could say we're kind of living in a new era, but it's history's repeating itself. That it's kind of like the fascist scare, that these words are now being used by the left to try and silence anyone who disagrees with them, which is a very obvious point. We can all see that, but obviously this has happened before.
Absolutely. Ozzy's just come on. Ozzy, do you have any thoughts on what we've been talking about thus far?
Evening, dear chaps. The strawberry guy, I haven't met you before, but I've met everyone else, so good evening.
Good evening.
I actually just wanted to quickly pivot back, because I'm like that, back to Nigel Farage, because there's been quite a lot of black pill stuff on Twitter recently about him, but like, as far as I'm concerned, like, when people step away, that doesn't necessarily mean the movement dies. It means, because all it means is that he's given ground to someone else to take his place, and fundamentally, I can only see that as anything but a bad thing. That's because the opportunity for someone to step in who's fresh, ideally who's younger. Britain is in desperate need of a Nick Fuentes, frankly. I mean, hopefully,
It's totally
this
correct.
chap.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hopefully, this chap would not be as memey as our good old friend Nick is, but someone with energy and zest and the willingness to get stuff done, appeal to younger people. Because frankly, persistence in a movement comes from young people. Like, I love boomers dearly, but they're not going to be around forever, and we need a persistence, because what our victory margin is probably within 2030 to 2050, and boomers are not going to last that long. Sorry. So
that's totally correct. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no problem. No problem. But yeah, Farage is the boomer appeal character, and that's not what we need right now.
Ozzy, you could always become the new British Nick Fuentes. How about that?
I'm too autistic to do that.
No, you're suitable for the role then.
Ouch.
1-0. Already firing shots on the streams. But
Yeah.
no, I think the value of a Fuentes figure. You can think whatever you like about him, and a lot of people, don't have a particularly positive view of him for various reasons. He's publicly shamed me before, but we should leave that in the past.
What are you going to do?
But no, I think even Fausti's in the chat, who I don't believe to be a fan of Nick Fuentes, has admitted that he's had a lot of utility in terms of bridging the gap between sort of like normie conservative and the sort of more like edgy right wing stuff. Like, I think there's a load of people, if you go on Twitter, there's a load of like testimonials of people saying, "Oh, I was like a normal like Turning Point UK sort of like neoconservative, and then I discovered Nick Fuentes." And then I became, pretty based. So
yeah, and I would also say Nick Fuentes has the right approach in terms of gaining ground, because Nigel Farage's typical attitude has been, I'm not going to play this inside the system, I'm going to play outside the system. So first he made UKIP, and then he made Reform UK, and he's trying to pressure from the outside. And none of these parties are ever going to gain traction. That's just the nature of the first past the post system. And so what ideally we would be looking for is someone who's saying, I'm in the Tory party, I'm here to change the Tory party from the inside and make it an asset for us. Like Nick Fuentes is attempting to do. If all goes well, he's going to primary quite a lot of people in 2022 in the United States. And that's just great news if it goes well. And this strategy needs to start being used in the UK, because frankly, Reform UK isn't going to go anywhere with Farage or without him. So,
yeah, I think that's spot on. Obviously, we have the first past the post system in the UK, which means that it's very, very difficult for third parties to gain a foothold. I think that there are examples of them doing so. Obviously, there's the SNP. And things like that. But I think, if you want to go for a third party, there's ways you can do it, like this sort of like a town by town strategy. But basically it's a lot more efficient to try and get inside these already existing sort of party mechanics and try and influence things that way. And I think what the sort of like, you could say, national conservatism or like traditionalist conservatism is lacking is that like one Fuentes figure. And I think it will come, because usually what happens in the States usually happens over here within about 10 years. It's usually an acid test. So it may happen, it may not happen.
I think it needs to be something more than a Fuentes figure. I think it needs to be like a super Fuentes. as in what the word super means, which is connected with some German words like Uber and hyper and other things like this.
Yeah, over.
Which it just means, so obviously it means first rate, excellent, but it basically means above, over, and beyond. So you need somebody that is beyond Fuentes. So I'm thinking Evelo when he got like arrested. Right, and he said, "Oh, I'm a super fascist." Right, yeah. He wasn't saying he was like an extreme fascist. He was saying he was above fascism as it was.
He's beyond gaming. He's a true gamer.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think instead of saying super Fuentes, you could say an Uper Fuentes, which is the actual proper meaning from Proto-Indo-European, which means over.
Someone suggested hyper in the chat, I think, if I've read that correctly. A hyper Fuentes.
Hyper Fuentes. I prefer the word Uper. I think Uper's nicer.
Yeah. You really like taxis, don't you, bro?
Yeah.
You got to be precise with this stuff, haven't you?
You got to be precise. You got to get it right, otherwise you're slacking.
Yeah. But no, I mean, of course, Nick Fuentes is not a catch-all winner, but going back to the heydays when I was getting started in YouTube politics, like some of you will probably remember like Richard Spencer and like Sargon of Akkad and all that sort of like playing, just sort of like, oh god, the establishment's so dumb and stupid and lame, and like that's just doesn't work. It hasn't worked forever, and an approach of playing with and cooperating with the big leagues is going to inevitably be a much better run and a much better game plan. And so that's the sort of thing I would be hoping to see in British politics, and that's something Farage did not bring to the table.
You just got to be very careful with that, though. I would say you've got to be very, very careful, because the establishment don't want people to be sort of riding the wave of their own power and everything else without you being drawn into it, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, you have to be clever. You have to be clever about it. But hopefully that person exists, and it's not me.
No.
But that was a very definitive statement, Mr. Oake.
I'm joking.
No.
Anyway, anyone? TS Strawberry Guy. I haven't heard your thoughts on the goings on of this stream thus far. Any thoughts on Fuentes or anything?
Fuentes just struck me as incredibly high energy, and I have no idea exactly his formula. But the level of loyalty he inspired in his followers was incredible. And because his followers were just almost as dedicated as he was. You've seen a couple of the groping sessions, I'm assuming, in the States, where they've gone to places like Turning Point UK and challenged various figures. Like, I think it's Charlie Kirk.
It's Charlie Kirk, yeah.
Charlie Kirk, yeah. I mean, you just see that from his followers. And you
baby
don't
face.
really see that nowadays. You usually see figureheads. I mean, when was the last time anyone saw like a Sargon follower own an SJW in the street? It just doesn't happen. So it's really rare. So he's got something. I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. Maybe it's his Latina side or something.
It might just be the meth.
Might well be.
You never know. I mean, he's being given a lot of money. I don't think in regards to the US, he's actually going to get anything done. And I don't think it's worth putting your trust in him in the US.
Right.
Just with some of the underhanded things. Like, there's been that recent stuff to do with him getting asking for people, 10 grand to have to be part of some big meetup, and you basically get nothing out of it. It's not. As much as
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
As much as I'd like to trust him, if I was obviously in the US, I just wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. He's was the whole capital? Yeah, there's that whole thing again. Was it particularly wise for him to do that? Maybe at the time, you can't look back on things and say, was that a good move or not too much, but he's made some mistakes, I think. But I think he's obviously had a lot of utility, and I think he's really the fact that he had two representatives. I think he had Steve King and he had I think it was Paul Gosa speak at AFPAC. Is a real sign that perhaps there is some future for the America First sort of nationalism thing. That was So what was that?
You just got to trust the plan.
Just got to trust the plan. Are you a plan truster, Elizabeth?
I am. He's the reason I first came to TikTok, actually, during the Guipa Wars. I think what draws a lot of people to him is that he was able to call out, the Charlie Kirk and the whole organization. He was the only person to do that at the time, which I think is why a lot of people admire him and look up to him. And he's still leading the way, as we can see. There's still a lot of stuff going on, which draws people to him. He seems to be the only conservative that actually has a plan, and I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to him.
He's got quite a bit of integrity to him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big thing you often hear him say on his streams is that I'd rather you didn't give your money to me. I'd rather you saved it and used it in your own way. But I think that's a sign of integrity. I think this girl's taken down a tweet. I was going to fucking talk about it.
What was the tweet?
Sorry. No swearing. It was the thing about there being no women in the Blue Beyond meeting.
Oh no! Oh
Did you
yeah,
see
I saw that. That was quite cringe.
I mean, I don't know. We could talk about it, but no one would have any idea what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah. I was about to ask. Could someone fill me on what Blue Beyond is and why I care?
Isn't it quite a liberal, conservative organisation? I've heard some bad things about it.
Someone's asked me a question. What was it? Your thoughts on the whole Fuentes and Cami date and Cami having a sexual relation with Fuentes? As I'm not in the inner circle, I cannot comment. But Catboy Cami is. I think he's someone who's been pretty much condemned by Fuentes for his actions. So bit of a cringe guy.
Literally
Yeah.
just before this, we were being condemned for talking about American politics too much. Sorry, my bad.
Condemned. Who have we been condemned by?
Mr. Faust, I do believe.
Oh,
Make
well,
yourself known, Mr.
Faust has condemned me multiple times already. So I mean, what can I say?
Tradition is
Nah,
tradition.
I like Faust. To be fair, like to be fair to Faust, he pointed out like he's the only person in like the Dutch dissident right scene who's actually like making videos and stuff. And he came on Brutus's stream I think like a week ago. And I think pretty much every conversation I've had with like right wing people has mentioned that stream. So like Faust has influenced the Anglo right in a way that cannot be rivaled by any other person that's just appeared on one stream. So
Well, we can't have that.
no,
can't have
well,
that.
but he's totally correct that like if you go on Anglo streams, there's always going to be drama. So I'm trying to avoid that today, but it is a correct in a correct observance. But yeah, so
We'll do our due
Elizabeth,
diligence and try and avoid that pitfall then.
we shall avoid the pitfall of falling into drama. Ironically, discussing not going into drama is also sort of drama. So we shall move on. Elizabeth, do you remember the what was it, the tweet that Sophie, I think it was Sophie Cochrane, she put it out?
Yeah, it was.
Do you remember the gist of it?
Yeah. So basically, like Blue Beyond was having a debate about weed, I think, and like most of the people who turned up to the debate were men. There was only one female, and this woman got a bit offended and said, "Why is there no female representation at this debate?" And it's funny because the debate was about weed. It's like, why does it have to involve females? You know, there's no connection there. But no, it was quite cringe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the thing is, she just like posted it and then just like didn't even say anything. She was just like, "There's no women at the weed debate." The thing is, there probably was as well. They just didn't have their cameras on. But
Well, it sounds a bit like a virtue signal that trying to point it
Definitely from a
out.
conservative. It's like,
yeah, well, she's a
most-
Thatcher.
Well, I would make the point that most conservatives are just liberals, which is where you get the left wing, right wing distinction from. So you've got. Go on.
No. Oh, I mean, I guess, like, in their current opinions, they are, but like, I don't think by innate disposition that's the case. I think they're probably like, if you got them and you were like, okay, and you excluded them from this current environment and you put them in like a sane place, they would be normal conservatives.
Well, no, that's not what I mean by them being liberal. I don't mean by the current time. I mean, as in the very conception of conservatism came out of liberal Enlightenment thought. That's what makes them liberal. So if you're not a conservative and you're not necessarily, well, it's called a progressive today, but it's basically a communist. And then I guess on the extreme, well, okay, hold on. So the conservatives are more towards the middle. You have more sort of classical liberals towards the left of centre. Then you have centrists, and then communists on the extreme end of that left wing, and then the fascists are on the extreme end of the right wing, you could say. But they all fall under liberal Enlightenment philosophy as ideas, because they all pretty much separate away any form of religious experience with any of their ideas, which is the reason why they're all ideologies, because it's just ideas playing. I don't remember. I keep forgetting the word. That put in place of religion where they shouldn't be, essentially. Serving the purpose of religion when they shouldn't.
Yeah, that's correct. I think obviously that there's been a liberalization of conservative politics. I think it was Robert Conquest who well, obviously it was Curtis Yarvin who said Cthulhu may swim slowly, but he always swims left. But Robert Conquest was the historian who said that if you go back 100 years, any conservative today, 100 years ago, would be considered a liberal. So you can go today, obviously a conservative like David Cameron, 100 years ago would be considered liberal. Someone from like 100 years ago, say, I don't know, Churchill or Chamberlain or what's the guy's name? Stanley Baldwin. Take them back 100 years, they'd be considered liberal, and so on and so on and so on. You get the idea. But
how far back did he actually take that? Because when I heard that displayed by, I think it was the distributist, he only took it about 300 years. Would Conquest, in his original formulation, take that back like ad infinitum, or would he just did he have a sort of
It was a sort of
backstop?
it was a presentation of current political theory, because like if you think Robert Conquest is a modern political historian.
Okay.
He's mainly professional in like Soviet history, if I remember correctly. But like one of the things he does make a very accurate prediction about is that if an institution is not explicitly right wing, it will turn left wing, and I think that's probably best expressed in terms of the Church of England. Like, you know,
Okay.
theoretically, a religious institution should all be about, you know, it's about archetypal truths. It's about, you know, constancy, and you know, it's based on a book that was written 2,000 years ago. Theoretically, at the very least, it should be pretty hardline conservative, and
Right.
because the institution itself is not bounded by what we would consider to be conservative rules, you know, it's bounded by political rules. It has made that transition,
It's fluid,
and that's yeah, and that's what the point Robert Conquest was making. It was that like, because conservatives innately are just like, well, I'm happy where I am.
Oh,
Interesting. Oh, he was
I
making
felt like he was, yeah.
It's a
I felt like he
good
was about to
point.
finish something there.
We
Is he
shall
still
see. I
there?
think he's.
We'll give him a while.
Oh, you're coming back?
Let's see
No,
what
he's
says in
gone.
the chat for a little bit.
Am I
I
gone?
think that there's a few Dutch people in the chat speaking Dutch. I think Faust has perhaps very kindly shared the stream. That would be very, very kind of him if he did do that. Who else
We
we
have
got?
to address the Dutch question, do we?
We must address the Dutch question. Fine.
Dutch are marching in with their clogs.
Right.
Trying to subvert the chat.
My grandma used to have some clogs. I suspect I may be. I know I'm part German. I may also have some Dutch ancestry.
You're cringe,
Cheeky.
you're not Celtic.
I know I am a mutt, unfortunately.
Typical
Subhuman. Anyway, the issue is in the UK, the Conservatives are such a broad church; it will never be meaningful to discuss them as one party. It's far more accurate to talk about them in their factions. Well, I think in my experience, the grassroots of the Tory party, a lot of them are quite socially conservative or more right wing on other things. Obviously, there's sort of two factions. There's a sort of like neoliberal faction, and there's a sort of more like, I guess you could say, actually conservative faction. But
so I know that there's currently three. You've got three factions. You've got the Common Sense group, you've got the ERG, and then you've basically got the other one, which is just global homogenization sort of conservatives.
Stewberries.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Those are basically the three factions, pretty much. And I know that at the current point in time, I don't remember that bloke's name now. I think he's in the cabinet. He's currently kicking out a lot of the MPs from the actual sort of global homo side of the Conservatives that are against Islam, kicking them out because they're wanting to pick up the Muslim vote, for example, across the UK.
Yeah, that could possibly happen. Again, there's people with different sort of strategies. I think the Conservatives and right wingers in the UK in general have sort of more sided with the Indian community, just because that's where, you know, there's a right wing Indian government currently under the BJP. So a lot of Indians are more conservative, so will sort of gravitate towards that party. Obviously, the Labour Party also have sided with Muslims historically in conflicts in Iraq, for example. I think Kashmir more recently. But again, the Conservative Party is you know, it's a vehicle. It's got a lot of different sort of money power behind it. But obviously, there have historically been people with, you know, views like myself, for example. I'm sort of like a high Tory conservative, you know, traditionalist conservative. There's people with my views been in the Conservative Party for hundreds of years. So from that aspect, I you know, sort of want to sort of exist within that party, and obviously within the you know, first past the post sort of two-party political system. I think it's very, very necessary to be in there. So we haven't heard from Elizabeth in a bit. Any thoughts on the Conservative Party, Elizabeth?
I think it's interesting that you bring up them trying to appeal more to Muslims, to minority groups. I never understood why it mattered. I mean, what the Tory party should be doing is appealing more to the working class who are concerned over these big issues of migration, and are going away and voting for parties like UKIP like the Brexit Party? Shouldn't the Tories be appealing to their vote more?
Well, they should on principle, and you would think that they would, which is what they actually did around Brexit when they had Dominic Cummings essentially help, where Dominic Cummings was used to essentially help smash the red wall around where I am.
Yeah.
But the reason why they're going after the Muslim votes is because at the moment they're currently underrepresented. So in the next decade to 3 decades, they're going to be making up. They should. This isn't me saying that I want them to, but this is that they should technically have around about 40 to 50 seats as MPs.
Yeah, they're future proofing. That's what they're doing, because they've because the Tory party knows, as much as we know, that the demographics of this country is changing, and they are more than happy to put their foot in early to exploit that. Because the fundamental law of democracy is politicians only care about the next election first, and the next election will involve a larger voting bloc of different religious minorities, and so of course it makes sense for them to play to that vote, at least in the medium.
We'll see what happens with the census. That's being done at the moment. That'll be quite interesting. We'll see how the balance of power lies during that. But I think there was something coming out of London a few weeks ago that Christian was no longer even being put as a religion on certain things. Obviously, I come from Hounslow originally. It's an area with there was one thing where there was so few Christians. I think it was Tower Hamlets or someone like that. There were so few Christians that it wasn't being put as a category. It wasn't. I don't think this was for the census. I think this was for something else. But it was an area with a very low number of Christians. So it said like Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, irreligious, or other religion, or whatever. So
it seems like a slippery slope to just start omitting categories.
Yeah,
They've already started doing that. They've already started admitting categories. I mean, they've removed, an example was from Leicestershire University, where they removed in the English literature courses Shakespeare. What's it called now? It's the Viking one. Not
the sagas. Beowulf.
No, Beowulf. There you go. Yeah, they removed Beowulf, and so Shakespeare, Beowulf, and Robin Hood from English lit.
Well.
Because they're gonna replace it with some some woman from Africa called Letitia or something. I don't know.
Well, at least they'll still have the Disney films.
Not the adaptations as well. Those will go.
They're going to get taken off Netflix probably. Right?
Yep.
Bloody hell.
You have to go like to some old film store to find the forbidden books.
You have to go to like a what's it called now? What are those old stores with all the old gubbins in? I'm forgetting what you call them.
Like an antique store.
Yeah, antique store, and you go in there and you get a VHS tape.
Get a VHS tape and underground.
Tape. Yeah.
It's literally it's like 19. I don't like to make 1984 comparisons very often, but it is a bit like 1984, isn't it? Like where they had to get all the old stuff in the antique store.
Oh, no,
we're doing it. We're doing. I know you hate this, Ozzy.
But like,
it's true though. That's what they did. That's what they did in the film. Not the film.
I read this book. I'm so smart.
They did that in the book. He went to the antique store to find stuff from the previous incarnation of the state, right? So it's a perfectly reasonable comparison, Ozzy.
Oh no, it's reasonable. I'm just being a pedantic me.
It is cringe. I will give you that. I will give you that. It is cringe to bring up 1984, but I think in this case, in this rare case, it's a perfectly relevant comparison. Right? Anyone else want to talk?
That's what you have to remember about 1984, though. Like George Orwell wrote it as a warning to totalitarianism. Now, not
what
saying
have you
that
done, Oake?
not saying
No.
everything to the book, but it was there as a warning. And we've kind of, fell into this.
Oh God!
Oh my! This is why we don't talk about that book.
What good pussy done? It's true. It's true. Sorry, this is a Christian stream.
No, but going back to them replacing good stories like Robin Hood, like Shakespeare in schools, isn't that really concerning though? Our future generation's going to grow up in this country not knowing anything about the folklores or the great
not-
writers.
Well, they already don't know. Like our age group,
Yeah.
people in our circles are aware of these things. Like I've got bits and bobs of these books, but I haven't read all of them. But I know that there's people in their 30s and 40s that are basically children. I was talking with my cousin today, and he was talking about some lasses that with his girlfriend, right? They're essentially, I'll just say it as it is. They're all essentially just slags. They're in their 30s, bear in mind, but they're all slags. They literally will shag anything that moves, right? And not only that, but if you were to have a conversation with them, they're thick. They know nothing
That's
about
most
anything.
like
I mean, like you
I
can.
know it's most, but it's telling when it's a 30-year-old.
yeah.
That's
At
disconcerting.
university, I met these two lads from London who didn't know who Lord Nelson was or the Duke of Wellington. And we were
From
talking
London.
about Waterloo, and they were like, "What's Waterloo? Isn't that a song by ABBA?" You know. It's like,
Oh
wow.
my god.
I mean, like it's bad. Like, don't let me disagree with you guys. But like, I mean, I wouldn't. I don't like this sort of, oh god, everything sucks. Like, I mean, like, you know, if you're looking for a spouse, there is good people out there.
Oh yeah, no, there is.
Yeah, like, you know, if you're looking for some good friends, they are out there. Like, I understand that the world's very depressing, especially for people our age, but like, I think defeatism is probably what gets us. It is probably the reason, if we lose, will be the
Oh no,
reason.
no, no. I would just preface this. These people that if you do see them and you meet them, just don't talk to them. Just don't
Yeah,
engage with
absolutely.
them. Just stay away from them
But
because they're not
Like,
worth
like,
your
like
time.
the existence of these people is because exists because there's a demand for it. Let's put it frankly. Like, if we all expected everyone else in society to be an upstanding, good individual, then they would be. So, like, you know, the problem starts with you, and what you're looking for. But yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
totally spot on. Yeah, I think you know, there's different sort of crowds that go to different sort of places, and a lot of the more, you know, better people. I don't want to say better people. Everyone is made in God's image, obviously, but a lot of the people with values similar to right wing people watching this, you know, you'll find them in places like Christian unions, you know, certain sort of groups, and there are obviously people you can find who are like minded. And I think it's very, very crucial to say that I think that like the sort of like, yeah, this sort of collapsitarian view that a lot of people within sort of right wing spheres, obviously right wing politics to an extent is the politics of pessimism, right? It's the politics of, you know, humans left to their own devices will, like, you know, do bad things, and obviously Spengler as well, you know, eventual collapse and things like that. But you know, obviously, I'm someone who believes in a higher power. I believe that, you know, Jesus Christ came down to earth to die for our sins. So, you know, in that sense, in a sort of cosmic sense, I'm sort of very, very you know, fine with things going on. I don't get particularly worked up or annoyed anymore about things in the way that I did when I was maybe 16, 17. And I think
Yeah, see,
it's very, very important. Sorry, carry on. What are you going to say?
Yeah, that's quite bold, to be honest. That's a very bold statement to make in today's world. I mean, I'm sort of a fan of sort of positive pessimism, as it were, where it's, you know, everything may seem. I think of a Rudyard Kipling poem. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head when I think about this, where there's one line where he says, keep your head when all about you have lost theirs.
If
Which is
you
not.
can keep your head
Thank you.
about you when all theirs are losing theirs.
Thank you very much, Ozzy. Thank you. So it's a case of it's a case of trying to sort of ride the wave of general doom and doomish sentiment that's around you, and to do so takes a certain level of detachment from what's happening around you and even from what your aim is. You just need to just ride it. There's no other way I can put that.
Yeah, that's totally spot on. Sorry, carry on.
So that kind of reminds me of a quote in Plato's Crito, and it goes, "And if he disobeys and disregards the opinion and the approval of the one, so you know, the higher good, and regards the opinion of the many who have no understanding, will he not suffer evil?" And that's you know, that's from over 2,000 years ago.
It's a very, very good quote from Plato.
It
Very,
really is.
very base guy, Plato. Him and Aristotle. Really. I think people understate how much like Plato and Aristotle had an impact on Christianity as well. Like Paul, I think, directly references Plato. I can't remember if it's Plato or Aristotle. I'm not an amazingly good Bible scholar, to be honest, but I think he referenced somebody. God, a bit Aussie probably knows. I don't know.
Yeah, he references Plato at certain points, and in the Acts of the Apostles, there are a few people who are from Socrates' school of stuff. But that's me once again being such a fucking language.
Mind your manners.
No.
Yeah, being me again. But no, there is value in philosophizing, but I do caution people on this side of doing it, because like there is a point at which it becomes runaway, and at which we start losing our contact with everyday people. But like going, oh, this is what Aristotle said in this line in the Politics. It's like,
comes across as a bit
It's
Yoda-like.
important.
It's a bit Yoda-like, and also it's like, who cares? Frankly,
But no, but
like,
it's fundamentally important to understand why these ideas are so crucial. I mean, have you guys heard of Confucius? Right, he was a Chinese philosopher way before Plato, way before Buddhism. I think he's underrated in the conservative movement.
he's actually 500 years.
He's really old. He arguably actually was the founder of traditionalism, and he founded it in a way to balance order and chaos. And his ideas,
Without trying to get into a fight, I would disagree with that. He founded.
he did. Unironically, he was probably one of the first traditionalist thinkers and one of the first philosophers as well. Arguably,
He wanted to return to a time before 3,500 years ago.
Yeah, he emphasized family. Respecting your elders as well. He emphasized traditionalism and virtue. Really cool guy. Highly recommend people read into him. There's an interesting quote which I think is quite good for the black pilled people out there, which goes, the virtue of a gentleman is like the wind, and the virtue of a petty person is like the grass. When the wind moves over the grass is sure to bend. So if more people, lead by example, and don't turn into what the system wants them to be, maybe we can succeed.
The thing about,
but maybe that's just a white pill. Who knows?
The thing about philosophizing is, and I'm going to do a bit of it myself, is I'm just reminded of this quote by, again, I'm going to butcher it, but it's by Marcus Aurelius, where he basically says, don't openly correct those who are mistaken, correct them in your response. So instead, like if this drives me up the wall all the time. People confuse singular and plural when they say there is as opposed to there are. And I don't, as much as it can rile me up, I don't mention it at all until the opportunity arises where I get to sort of use the plural instead of the singular, if that makes sense. So when I'm talking myself, I will just say there are as opposed to there is. And if they don't absorb it by that way, then I just have to let it go. And it's sort of similar with philosophizing. You can drop a quote into a conversation by XYZ philosopher without mentioning it's a quote from them. And if you get asked, oh, that sounds good, you just say, yeah, it was from Plato.
Yeah, I have a very similar sentiment towards it, because I mean, I understand that we're on YouTube and courtesy of Oake, and we have all of us are probably pretty educationally privileged. Maybe some of us aren't. I don't know about all your personal backgrounds, but like the fact is that not everyone is, and if you want to give a common message, it needs to not be about some fancy guy who wrote letters at university 300 years ago. It needs to be about their present day problems.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I was talking in the sense of the impacts that Plato and people like that. Obviously, Christianity had a big impact. I think stuff like Shakespeare certainly wouldn't have happened without things like the King James Bible, for example, that had a big impact on our lexicon and things like that. So, and obviously with the Greeks impacting on Christian thought, there is certainly I don't think we would have had an enlightenment if it wasn't for the Greeks. No other society. I don't think any. I suppose the Arabs did briefly. They had the Arab Golden Age, but that was sort of brought to a halt pretty quickly by the Mongols. So I think we're pretty much the only civilization on Earth that had an enlightenment. The Europeans.
Yeah, I know, but it would beg the question, and I know this is getting into dangerously intellectually flagellant waters. But did we really want an enlightenment?
No, of course, no.
Ooh.
But,
Yeah.
well,
I think it's
the
interesting.
Enlightenment again, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? There's things that came out of the Enlightenment, like brilliant art, for example, that were very, very, very beautiful. Great sense of beauty. As a conservative, I'm an appreciator of beauty and want to conserve it. So it created a lot of great beauty again, but there are obviously negative parts as well. For example, sort of this cult of egalitarianism, that everything has to be equal. Obviously, that's pretty negative. Families aren't equal relationships. Obviously, children aren't equal to their parents. You can bring up loads and loads of different other healthy sort of natural hierarchical relationships that aren't equal. So I think in that regard, it's been very, very negative, and it was sort of the Enlightenment was sort of the beginning of the kicking of the I wouldn't say bucket down the road, but it doesn't make any sense, does it? Kicking the ball down the hill. There you go. That's a better one. Kicking the ball down the hill towards neo-modernity. There we go.
Sorry, guys. At that point, I actually have to drop off.
Oh,
It was an absolute pleasure meeting you all. It was an absolute pleasure bringing on. Thank you very much, Royal Oak, for inviting me. And
Good.
No worries,
shout out to
man.
everyone in the chat. You're also terrific people. Take care.
See you,
Sorry,
boy.
Take
James.
care.
see you.
Bye.
I think it's interesting, though, to look at where the Enlightenment started, which was around about the time in the 1500s in Germany, and that was the printing press. And I think it's interesting because at the time there was also a large amount of some of the ideas that were being thought up. So I'm trying to remember when communism first came about. But communism as an idea came out of the idea of community.
It's very old. I mean, the thing is about communism is that you can go back to hunter-gatherers because hunter-gatherers shared all their goods
No, I'm not.
equally.
No, I'm not going to go that far back because it's silly because it's got no etymological root. So communism is a word. Sorry.
Well, I mean, and the other route you could go back to is the Protestant Reformation, because there was like prior heresies, which basically they believed in communal sharing and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, but that's in a word that would be personified by the word common, which is belonging to all, owned or used jointly, general or public nature or character. But it also means common as a noun means a fellowship or brotherhood in the early 14th century. People of a community or town, freemen and citizenry. 15th century, it's late 15th century, land held in common. So I think the word, so communism obviously comes from a common, but then when you look at the word common, that actually comes from a Proto-Indo-European root word called me. That's MEI. I probably can't pronounce it right, but that means to change, go, or move, which is interesting because that's just the direct link to it, essentially. There's nothing really in between that.
Yeah, well, communism, surprisingly, it comes out the root of Hegel, which is where a lot of German conservatism comes out, and I think it got a few things right about the sort of necessity for like a sort of community. Obviously, conservatives believe in community. We have Burke's little platoons. We believe that people best live their best lives when they're within a community with sort of common morality, history. Something like a small village or a small town is probably the best thing for human development. So communism was right about its communitarian aspects. Obviously, it was right. It's wrong about other things, for example, because it thought that sort of like people didn't need a sort of deeper tribal connection, which was what Scruton sort of called it, the tribal part of the self. Which they didn't really accept that, and they thought it was just like trying to divide the workers, which obviously we disagree with. But yeah,
it's also communism is also about like breaking down. So it's about deconstructing everything to get to some sort of utopian apotheosis. I think a word might be rather useful. But communism is right. I don't think communism is right because it's a perversion of all of the, not just the language, but it's also a perversion of all the morals and everything else that goes along with it. Because in every communist revolution that's ever existed, whether it's been funded or not, there's always this degeneration of man into this sort of primal instinct, not even instincts, but desires, I think is better every single time.
Well, yeah, I think communism, to an extent, it tried to sort of rebuild the person, right? They had Homo Sovieticus, which was their theory of like the post-capitalist person, right? They wanted to get rid of the human desire, I guess, to sort of like acquire resources for themselves. Like people obviously do that in nature. That's because of, you know, evolution and things like that. Animals obviously have a desire to like get food and water and things like that. So and people, you know, we're hunter gatherers at the end of the day. We don't hold things, you know, collectively, so to speak. We hold things sort of for ourselves, perhaps our family, perhaps our broader community, but we don't, you know, we don't own things collectively, essentially. And obviously we barter naturally. Monkeys naturally barter, they naturally trade. And trying to repress those things, I think, was, you know, one of the fundamental flaws, because it's a fundamental part of human nature to do that. So
I don't think it's like necessarily a problem with like communism in its idea was basically it's a form of back to basics, but it's like an Uber back to basics, because hunter gatherers will typically share the meat around, and and all that sort of stuff. It's so in many ways it is trying to reconnect with that. What the problem is with communism is that it tries to apply it to a level too high, because on the hunter-gatherer level, you all know each other, you're all friends, you're probably genetic relations, so you have an additional reason to be friendly to them. On a more netta and country level, like, why do I care about Bryan from 3 towns away? Like, he's just a guy. You know, it's a tough sell in that way, and that's why it falls apart. It's not necessarily because it's wrong to the human condition; it's because it's wrong at the scale at which it's applied. That's just my take.
In regards to communism, though, it's ultimately an idea, which is obviously an ideology. But it's kind of funny, actually. I'll just go on this little tangent. The word ideology is about the study of ideas, right? Which I think is interesting, because today it doesn't mean that. It means actually it refers to a ideology, which is communism, fascism, conservatism, liberal, whatever it is. But all of these ideas ultimately are stand-ins. That's the word I was looking for earlier. They're just stand-ins for religion. So it's a rational religion that is used to replace the actual expression of the soul or the spirit within humanity, and obviously this in itself is within a society, effectively. But ultimately, an ideology in itself is purely because it's rational. It means it's material, and because it's material, it can't actually be immaterial. It can't be, as people call it, the metaphysical. It's got no connection to it, and it can't. As a result, it's a stand-in, which is the reason why all ideologies ultimately collapse in on themselves every single time, and or they essentially degenerate into these other systems where they have to be perpetually held up with draconian laws as they get. You know, they have to keep adding more laws and changing this. It's like fiat currency with capitalism as well. You have to engage in all these silly things just to keep it up, because it can't actually stand. It can't actually stand on its own basis. Ideologies are not based because they can't stand.
Well, like, I mean, in terms of like, I mean, what I would say is that capitalism exists because power exists. You know, I think this is a particular area which Oake would disagree with me. But you know, I do think capitalism is in many ways a power enforced institution. But there's a great video series by True Dill Tom. I can't remember what he's called now. But what I would say is that, you know, the new monetary system in capitalism is just another manifestation of the assertion of power, like feudalism was the assertion of power. You know, fundamentally, you've got to sign up that contract, or the bigger boot's going to crush you. And that's, in many ways, that's what politics is, and that's what, you know. And like as Ralph says, this is why the path to power is really important. It's because we need to get to a position at which we're the boot which will do the stomping, and that's Yeah, sorry. That's
all right.
the end of my ramp.
Yeah, I think that's correct in a way. I think there's a distinction to be made between corporatism and capitalism in its pure form. I think capitalism in its pure form, in terms of markets, is an inevitable construct, and I think trying to get rid of that is almost pointless. But I think the system we have currently is basically corporations have power over the system to a large extent, and sort of like force people to work like enormously large hours in order to like sort of pump through the system. And obviously it's not sustainable. It collapses every 10 years or so and needs to be bailed out, and it's a system basically of ultimate greed. And I'm absolutely not in favor of the financial system as it is. I'm pro capital because I think it's an inevitable thing. But yeah, also people are randomly banning each other in the live chat. Can we not do that, please? Right? Can we have one Anglo stream without drama, as Faust said? Faust is correct about Anglo streams being full of drama. All right, we're breaking the trend. Okay, everyone,
Hey,
just get
Ozzy.
along. It's not
Break
hard.
the meta, bro.
Hey,
The
Ozzy. What's Ozzy?
Yes.
He where's Tony?
Moving on. So,
Oh, no.
I feel it's somewhat a bit premature, Elizabeth. Right. But yes, I mean, like the current system as it is with regards to capitalism, like one of my big problems is that we measure the system's progress in terms of an increase in GDP, which is, that's a very innocuous thing when we could be measuring it by something like an increase in real wages, which of course been stagnant across the West. If you take those two different perspectives, an increase in GDP, like the size of the Western European economy has doubled in the past 30 years. From the perspective of real wages, it stayed exactly the same. So, this gives a new perspective to, like, I understand that the right wing is very much in favor of individual responsibility, and I'm okay with that, but there are limits, and one of those limits is that frankly the working class has been absolutely screwed over by the modern capitalist machine, or you could call it corporatist machine, or whatever it is.
I think it's interesting when you actually look at the word capital, and I'm also going to look at the word market in a minute as well, just to emphasize this point, is that obviously capital from 1610 refers to a person's wealth. In Latin, it's capitale, which is a stock or property. Capitalis, noun use of neuter of Latin capitalis, which is capital, chief, and first. The wealth employed in carrying on a particular business, that part of the produce of industry which is available for further production. That was from 1793. But it's also interesting because the word capital specifically comes from the word cattle. So in regards to it as an adjective from early 13th century, capital refers to of or pertaining to the head. Now this could be head of household, it could be head of a kingdom, whatever it is, right? But it's interesting because it refers of the head, hence capital, chief, and first. So that like the head monarch, the capital. This is a capital city. This is where the monarch lives with the palace, etc. So on, so on, so on. What's interesting though is that when you look at the word cattle, which is connected with the word capital, is that you can make the point that capital is pertaining to the head of cattle, right? And then when you look at cattle, it's obviously a type of property that people used to own. And then if you look at the word kaput, which means that's just head in Proto-Indo-European, so it comes from there, goes backwards to cattle. But if you look at something if you look at the word chattel, that's just French for cattle, right? If you put a word at the end of that, which is slavery, what you've got is chattel slavery. So effectively, what capital is, in its real entirety, is if you engage in a form of slavery, capital is actually the enslavement of people, because you're turning them into a form of cattle to make things, to profit from it, right? And you are the head of all of that capital.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, again, I
just
think it comes from Marx, doesn't it? That's where someone said in chat it came from Marx. Marx came up with the term capitalism.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case, but the actual word itself doesn't come from Marxism because it's mentioned early 15th century. It's mentioned in the 1610s. It's mentioned the capital as an adjective, pertaining to is actually like cattle. Like again, pertaining to the head of a person comes from the 13th century. So it comes, but the words that they would have used then is obviously not capital. They probably would have used something more in line with caput or capitales. Right? They would have used a different word depending on where it was.
Yeah. And I think there's a bit of nuance that needs to be said here, at least on my part. I don't have a problem with people owning stuff or, you having your toothbrush or anything. In fact, I'm okay with people owning financial instruments and things like that. The important thing, at least for me, is that the economy serves the people and not that the people serve the economy. And that is the unfortunate change that I think we've observed since around the mid 1980s. There has been a slow transformation of the economy into something that improves people's wages, helps you get your children fed and into modern life, and it's turned more into a instrument for institutions and for helping. I don't want to be Marxist about it, but there are Jeff Bezos is ridiculously rich. What can I say?
Faust is correct about capitalism. However, not the word capital, but he's correct about the word. Is correct about the word capitalism, which was obviously coined by Marx. That was in 1854, and then recorded in 1872 by socialists, using it disparagingly. And then in 1877, it meant the concentration of capital in the hands of a few, the power or influence of large capital. But the word capital itself doesn't come from Marxism. It's capitalism. It's the ism that's attached onto the end. So it's essentially turning capital into an ideology. So it's easy to then deconstruct and ascribe onto somebody else. But in regards to the word market, which I think is interesting, is the word market, obviously, a meeting at a fixed time of buying and selling livestock, provisions, occasion on which goods are publicly exposed for sale and buyers assembled to purchase, right? That's from early 12th century, some form of Old French. But the word market shares its similar words it shares the same words with mercenary. It also shares the same word with marketeers. But interestingly, it shares the same word, the root word that results in you getting the word mercury. And the word mercury, Mercury, Roman god Mercury. I'm just trying to find it. Originally a god of tradesmen and thieves. So you could make the point that this is also where you get the word merchandise from. So the word merchandise comes from Mercury. So when you see like advertisements for merchandise or anything like that, you could make an implication that that person's a tradesman or they're a thief, or they might be both, right? And the people that tend to be involved in the market are, as a result, businessmen, but also lie. A wider implication is that you could make the point marketeers or people involved in the market don't have any morals, and as a result don't actually have any faith. And I mean, by faith I mean they don't have any loyalty, which is what the word faith means. Someone that has it means truth, it means faith, and it means loyalty, which is the reason why you would use the word faithfulness or faithful, honesty, for example. And then a word, so you could refer to marketeers and other people like mercenaries as being nullifidians, which means someone of no faith or one of little faith, effectively. And it's interesting because that word there, nullifidian, is important because it shares the same pi root word with trust, confidence, and persuade, Proto-Indo-European, Bheidh, beheady, right? And that has a lot of different words attached to it, like confidence, defiance, fidelity, fideism, perfidy. It's you know, these sort of things about words are very important. So it's the reason why I think people don't trust people in the market or like capital, because the people that tend to engage in it are not actually trustworthy or loyal to anything else apart from the market, thus their own desires. I'm done.
All right. But have you done DMT? That's the real question.
Yeah, bro. Have you done DMT perchance?
No. What?
Oh, what a disappointing outcome.
No, you've very well sort of explained the importance of etymology there. I think it's a corner of thought that's not often tackled. But Eno, got any thoughts on capitalism at all? Or...
Not really, no.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think this is
amazing.
probably an area of like, it's a very specific area, unfortunately.
Capitalism is fake and gay, but capital is very real.
And we need to be on the bridge of capitalism and socialism, order and chaos.
What? Jordan Peterson is in the chat. Please feel free to bully him.
We need to all become Nazbols. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Nazbol then.
Okay.
Yeah, disavow for any feds watching.
Yeah. But no. Yeah, like I'm fine with economics and like I'm fine with capitalism in the sense that you can own stuff. Like the chat is giving me a bit of a rigmarole about this, and like I understand why, because it's quite a tough point of view for the right wing to say, well, maybe there is caveats to capitalism, and I understand that, but we have to be real that a lot of our voting base have really, really suffered in the past 20 years. Now, whether you think that's part of capitalism's fault or socialism's fault doesn't really matter, because that's how they see it. And we need to appeal to these people. And they all have agreed. Like, Brexit was not simply a vote for nationalism. It was a economic vote in many ways. You know, the poor voted overwhelmingly more for Brexit than the wealthier classes. You know, I'm reminded of that Question Time video in which that woman goes, "Who's going to hand me my sandwich at Pret?" Like we have to be. I mean, I know I've been called the optics cuck before, but maybe it is time we optics cuck, and maybe it is time we say, look, capitalism isn't all it could be, and maybe we should.
Why is it unoptical to say that though? Why is it like why
because the right wing is typically very established in capitalism. You know, we've put a lot of energy into defending capitalism in the past 50, 60 years.
It's the only value they have, arguably.
Yeah, and like, you know, other issues like social integrity, what's happening to our young people, you know, I can imagine Ozzy.
Don't get me started on Greg's. We've already already got his whole law anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
Greg's
I worked at a pub for a year. I was not particularly the most agreeable fellow, but yeah. So you know, we've got a big swathe of social issues, and it's so disappointing to see the right wing, you know, picking economics of all things. Like, I'm doing a degree in economics, and even I think it's a pretty sideline issue. Like, it's so sad to see us dig our feet in this over all things. Like, was it Daniel Hannan? Like going, oh, bro, this new refugee flux would be so great for our GDP. It's like, is this who we are? Is this what we're about?
Let's put it like that. Well, I'll just do it again. I'll just go on a little more of a deep dive on etymology again. If you're using the word capitalism, it's ultimately an idea, right? Which means that you have, in some parts, used that as a means to you've used it as a stand-in for religion, right? So instead of you can't have faith in the market, because as I just described there, as I just previously said, the market in itself is not loyal. The market in itself cannot be loyal because it engages in immoral activity for you to make capital gains, right? For you to actually make money and capital, you have to be immoral. You have to do underhanded things, and you have to be thrifty and frugal, as people would say, right? With your money. So you can't have faith in that system because the system in itself is not. It's not faith. It's not truth. It isn't loyal. It's not honest. It isn't what you should attach yourself to at all. And I think the word capitalism, just drop it. If the communists use it, just drop it. Just stop using it. Stop using it as something to refer to yourself. Just drop the word, ignore it. Just use the word capital. Just use that. Or, here's a better one, use the word economic. The word economic pertains to the management of a household. That's literally what it is. So to maintain a household, you have to be frugal and a bit thrifty with the household, with the money. You've got to move it around and things like that.
Yeah, that's totally right. So moving on to the next topic, I think Elizabeth wanted to talk about this. Elizabeth, you've been suspended from student union for 2 weeks for shouting. Was it saying "Rule Britannia" during a?
Yeah,
You should probably explain.
So the context was basically the student council was debating whenever they should carry on a policy which banned the British military from advertising at freshers. And if anyone's aware of the University Officer Corps, their whole purpose is to appeal to students. Luckily, the policy got shut down, so it's no longer.
Are you
in
sure you
effect.
weren't doing drugs?
So, yeah, well,
Right, we'll just ignore that. Carry on. Ignore him.
no,
Carry on.
but no,
Serious.
no. Anyway,
Serious experience here. Carry on. Sorry.
well, imagine taking drugs. What a degenerate.
Exactly.
No, anyway, where was I? Okay, yeah. So basically, this student said we should ban the British military from advertising at freshers because it might make some students feel uncomfortable, which was ridiculous. So I replied with, "If you truly hated this country, if this country truly, terrorized your people, why would you come here to study? If it's that traumatic, why would you come to Britain?" So we're talking about international students. So they got me for that. They reported me for that, and they also reported me for saying "Rule Britannia." After my half Canadian, half Korean friend said it in the chat as well. He didn't get reported, I think, because he was Canadian and Korean. But so yeah, they just went after me. But it's completely ridiculous. But they were proper seething that they couldn't, carry on banning the British military. The funny thing was, it's like none of these people came from countries Britain colonized. You know what countries they came from? European countries like Belgium. Remember the Belgium Congo? Like Germany. So they were like international European students telling Britain that they can't advertise their own military on campus. How ridiculous is that?
I'm known for my cucking on issues of British imperialism, but I do have to admit, in comparison to the Continentals, we are basically angelic. In terms of our colonial track record, like the French.
Faust is wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
Belgium is not a country. Well, they did some pretty terrible things. I mean, it's the Flemish and the Wallonians.
Yeah, they were quite brutal. But yeah, this half Canadian and Korean guy actually said in a meeting, "Hey, the British Empire actually, helped my grandparents in Korea during the Korean War, and I'm eternally thankful for them. So I find it, disgusting that you would, try and make their people feel ashamed about it." That's true.
Oh,
we did a lot of good things. We should be proud of it. I don't think
was that directed to me?
Wait, no. It's just some more context, I suppose.
Okay.
Sorry, Louis got to head off. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to head off now. It's getting late and I've got work in the morning. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on. Thank you to the chat. You've been absolutely lovely. It's lots of activity, and I hope to be back on. And I hope I wasn't too boring with a lot of the word stuff. So
no, absolutely not, man. I'm sure everyone was very, very appreciative. I think people said that it's really, really good to have deep dives into the meanings of words. Gives us some real context as to how words are used against us in the scrutinized sense. So thank you very much for popping on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
See you in a bit, lads.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
No worries,
Lewis.
my man. See you later.
No.
Bing bong. There we go.
Ding,
Right.
ding.
Okay. What were we talking about? I
We
forgot.
were talking about
Elizabeth has sacrificed herself in this sense, and everyone's just talking about how Belgium isn't a real country. So that's the number one point. That's the number one point we can drag from this story. But I think it's going to be in the Telegraph in a couple of days. So keep your eyes out for that. If you
It's in the National
read the
File,
Telegraph,
if you guys
it's in the
wanna
National
read that
File
one.
with Jack Hadfield, a great friend of yours and mine. Well, not a great friend. I know him. I wouldn't say he's a
One of the
great
best
friend, but
journalists, one of the best newsmen out there. That's
yeah,
what
he's a good
it's called.
journalist. I like Jack.
Respected
Jack's a good guy.
newsman.
Respected newsman for the National File.
Yeah.
Right.
Elizabeth sounds East European. No, I'm Celtic.
Cringe. No,
right.
North
Let's
Celtic,
please stop
aren't I?
messing. Nobody asked.
Nobody
No one
asked.
asked.
Shut up, Anglo.
It's like saying I'm Celtic because I'm part Cornish, right? So, I'm not. Okay, you're English, whether or not you like it, right?
No, I'm
Carry on.
British.
Guys, I'm 7%. I'm 7% Norwegian. Now I'm going to go Varglarp.
Varglarp.
It's not a
Gonna be
lot.
posting like Faust about. Elizabeth probably agrees with Faust on Anglos, to be honest. So
Who?
the guy, you're not reading the chat anyway.
Someone
There's a
talking
guy.
about
There's this
cringe.
Dutch guy. He's been very, very cool. We like Faust.
Oh, is he the one on Brutus' stream? He seemed okay. Yeah,
is there a problem with being an Anglo Faust? Is there a problem with that?
It's better than being Dutch.
He's got his ancestral hatred of the British Empire.
Yeah,
Real
because
problem.
we just dabbed on you 3 times.
I'll check out the link. Anyone who wants to talk can. There you go. For the last few minutes, we probably
Oh,
might
no.
end in a minute.
Yeah.
Can we go on to
but,
the Irish question?
Irish question. You're part Irish. How many times do I have to tell you? Anyway, people with Irish last names, it's statistically proven, are less likely to vote for right-wing parties. It's a fact.
Yeah, I vote for right-wing parties. Disprove
Okay.
It's an anecdotal.
I can think of probably.
Yeah, but you're
like anecdotal.
your sources are coming from hope, not hate. So.
Well,
It's literally it's a hope not hate source. Yeah.
The thing is that like there was a really, really good analysis done like a few years ago about in the United States how different European ethnicities vote in party lines, and it's basically like only English, Scots, Welsh, Norwegians, and Dutch people that vote Republican. Like in the entire USA by majority, like everyone else votes Democrat. So like, I mean. Are you like if you're going to gang up on the Irish, you might as well gang up on every other European except the Dutch. Those damn pesky
Irish. The Irish are built different. Master race, right?
Someone please join. Someone save us from this.
Actually, we got Bryan. I don't even know who Bryan is, but he can come on. Hello, Bryan.
Hello, I'm Bryan.
Oh, it's Bryan.
Hello. Continue,
Bryan.
You guys continue.
Yeah. So,
Well,
I
we
mean,
weren't
we
saying
weren't
anything.
continuing on much. We were just hating on Irish people, as is the traditional Anglo.
I don't blame you. It was based.
The traditional Anglo thing to do before he goes to sleep.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Based.
after you pray, when you sleep, you hate Irish people, and then you sleep.
Yo, can we get an optics check on that?
Nobody asked, Nobody asked.
Ooh, big gun saucy. Calm down.
No, I think I know you from somewhere, mate. But
I've never met
I
this
recognise
man
his
in my
voice
life,
as well.
just saying. No, you don't.
Recognize the name.
but yes.
You
Before
can't
we
even. Bryan can't even spell his own name. It's Byron.
Did I actually do that? Oh shit! Oh no, I didn't mean to do that.
B-Ran. It's B-Ran, bro.
All right. Before we end, there's something I wanted to point out. I don't know. I was going to cut into it a different way, but we were talking earlier about the spirit of the people, right? And I think that's one part that is never usually addressed. People often address like the nation. They often address the what's Gruden called the tribal, but they don't address the spiritual, and that is of course in this country is the Christian religion. And obviously those are the three aspects. It is the soil, the tribal, the people, and the spirit. And I don't know why I brought that up then. It's completely irrelevant, but it's just an intelligent thing for me to say that everyone can walk with if they want to. So any thoughts on the spiritual aspect, anyone? Or
What?
no one knows what I just said. All right, fine. Don't worry. It makes sense to me. Okay.
It makes sense to me, but never mind. I was about to say something, but clearly it's aforementioned before its time.
Hey,
So
Ozzy. Hey, Ozzy.
if no one responds to her, she might shut up.
Ozzy,
Ozzy.
you need to respond.
Yes, Mr. Royal Oak, dear boy. What is
I think our fellow panel member would like to ask you a question.
what the woman?
Yeah.
Is she speaking out of turn again?
No, it's just not good optics.
Wait, you Scotsman, you wee cunt, answer me.
Yeah, he's Scottish. You wouldn't be able to tell, would you?
He's
literally
the Aussie and Eno are the diversity quota, obviously.
Am I?
Yeah.
What? I'm just British.
You're Irish, obviously.
Hey, only 25%.
Yeah, Aussie's a Scottish immigrant. We all know that.
Yeah, where's my potato salad? I expect it by now. That's what you think the Irish women.
Why are
ran
more
out, you ran
people?
out.
Why are more people tuning in and staying watching? For
Yeah,
this?
Because
we
I'm
should
here,
do
mate.
it.
It's because
Obviously.
we're making fun of Eno, and everyone finds that a great
fun of
topic
me.
to stay for.
Did anyone work out that Ozzy was Scottish from him talking?
No one would guess. No one.
He's
like
amazing at his accent. That's one
if
thing
you
I
did.
admire.
One if you did. Yeah. It's
He's
like the
a
Tory
traitor to
phenotype that just
Scotland.
changed their accent to like be
No problem with
whatever.
that.
Oi,
There's
Ozzy.
no problem with
oi,
that. There's no problem with that.
Oi, Ozzy.
Yeah. Yes, what?
Wait, I've been waiting all week to like join this live stream and say this. When is Tony gonna unban me from this server? He was supposed to be joining us.
You are everyone privy to this.
Which is no one. Carry on.
Truly inspiring chat will soon discover the mystical and magical character known as Tony.
Hey,
But
Tony.
we do not reveal. We, in good Christian fashion, do not reveal things before their time, Elizabeth.
Before however many people are going to watch this. We do a little trolling. It's called. We do a little trolling.
Tomfoolery.
Faust is foul. I think Ozzy, you need to address his financial question a bit more. What financial instruments do you support?
Okay. So financial instruments. So there's nothing like a problem with owning stock or owning bonds or whatever. Like I don't have a problem with usury in. Well, I don't call it usury. I don't have a problem with interest rates. I don't have a problem with making investments for a return in the future. That's absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. The problem begins when people acquire so much wealth in which they can start affecting the politics of everything and can start impinging their vision on the nation based on merely their wealth. That's when I start to see an issue. What about CFD?
Oh, yeah, he's dropped out a couple of times. A couple of people have joined. I have no idea who they are, so it's probably a terrible idea. But hello,
Hello, you're right, pal.
hello. You doing all right? Any thoughts on anything at all?
Oh my god, I can't believe I'm on the live
Do
stream
you mind
with
if I ask
Royal
the
Oak.
question quickly?
Go on then.
I have my friend asked me a question that he wanted me to say. Are you guys riding with Biden? I personally am riding with Biden. Are you?
Biden's Irish, isn't he?
Which makes him better.
Lol.
Hey, yo, Yang Gang.
Who would die for Biden in this chat? I would die for Biden.
I would die for Biden and his amazing country. I land
This has deteriorated really quickly.
No. It's gone
Lewis leaves, and like the quality of the conversation instantly
You
goes to
shouldn't have let
pot.
us in.
Yeah, you really shouldn't.
Bad
mate.
idea.
Who even are right, okay? Have you got any thoughts on anything we've discussed at all, Biram? Or
Any
Squad
thoughts?
Duckers?
To be
Anything
honest,
intellectually stimulating,
no.
please.
I forgot what most of you guys said, so
Oh, I love this. This is great.
Not even talking about anything.
I'm really super pleased that you let me on. Thank you for letting me stay, but I think I'm going to start logging off now.
You're welcome.
Okay.
ooh.
Bye.
Yeah, but
Goodbye,
I'll
Ozzy.
see you folks. I see you making up a bit of stir and chat. Cool down before I next see you, if I ever do. Right, bye guys.
Safe.
Bye,
See
Ozzy.
you later.
Have a good one.
Call quality just dropped massive.
So now Ozzy's gone. Can we start hating on Scotland, or is that still illegal?
You're getting optics right.
Can we get an optics stream? I don't want to drop it now because people are still actually watching for some fucking reason.
Hey,
Well,
Scotland's great.
Because
We need
oh,
something
they
to
love
talk
you.
about,
They
guys.
love
Ozzy's
you.
joined the Discord call.
They love
Oh
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Should we talk about stuff with the SNP or whatever's happening with her?
SMP's
yeah.
gay.
What's actually happening with that?
According to Aussie, I think there's like they've used government money or something to progress their party.
Yeah,
That's all I know.
The Scottish
do
the Scottish state has basically like conspired against Alex Salmond. So they've just like used all like apparatuses of the state to like try and get rid of him. Like basically, like Scotsmen just fall out with each other constantly. I said this on Twitter. I think they just basically like, you know, they just argue, and there's this whole sectarian thing going on as well. And you know, it's Scotland at the end of the day, right? They will fall out. It's just the lack of sunlight and the lack of vegetables. So yeah. Anything to say,
Celtic
anyone?
bands and their consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
Oh no.
Could be worse.
You're Irish and Catholic. You are Irish and
What
Catholic.
I
do you know that?
literally am not. I'm only 25% Irish, and then I'm
Oh,
25% Scottish.
Scotland could be in a worse state.
Oh, hey,
Okay.
Could be in a worse state.
hey, Ireland's a great country.
An hour and a
It's
half.
just,
Have they even discussed Farage yet? We talked about him for about 10 minutes. Anyone got any thoughts on Farage, Squatty Buckers?
Yeah.
Personally,
Farage is
you
a what's he called? He supported fucking Tony Blair, didn't he? So lost
Wait,
hope
did
in
he?
him now. Yeah, he turned around and said, "Oh, he should be administering. What was it? He should be administering the virus or something like that. Not the virus, the COVID vaccines and shit." So
Wait,
yeah,
It makes no sense, though.
I've
It
got,
really
I've got no
doesn't.
idea. I just read up.
You know the
I just
context
saw.
of what you said. That
Man's reading
Yeah.
CNN or something.
No, he was he was talking
No, it's
about,
true. It's true. He did do that.
Yeah. So
He
yeah,
did do that. Yeah.
So I lost all
Personally,
respect for him.
what I believe, I think he's done his job. His job was to get us out of the EU, and he promoted that incredibly well. And therefore, he's done, and he deserves a good retirement, I think.
it's just the issue is who's going to replace him. That's the thing. Is there any other politicians who truly care
Mark
about
Collette.
that
Who
one?
owns Weatherspoons? Weatherspoons episodes. Come on.
Didn't that guy say in a I think he said to vote for Hitler over Jesus Christ in Nepal, and he claims to be Christian.
He
Isn't
did
that
do
true?
that. We're not talking about. I refuse to discuss them on this stream. We're not talking about PA. Okay, I
Yeah.
refuse to do it.
They're fucking
So
gay
this is-
anyways. So
They
don't
are.
worry.
This is not a drama stream. Okay, it's an Anglo stream, but it's not. We've got we've got Columbrian here.
Oh
God.
no!
No,
God, no!
no.
Yeah.
We got a literal.
No.
He's literally mixed race, but so he can.
He's
I
a
am.
foot doctor. He's a
He's
foot
good,
doctor.
which means he must be good optics, of course. So.
So
Is he
I
good
think I
optics?
should. I think I should start off by introducing myself. So,
No, don't please don't.
Yeah, come on,
well,
Callum.
you know,
Come on, big man.
You know, are you still mad after last time?
No, we're not going into this.
We are not bringing that
Oh,
up. please.
right. Well, let's be civil then, shall we, lads?
Let's
Because
be
I'm not
civil
going
in the interest of in the national interest.
in the national
The
interest.
national interest, the 30 people that are watching.
In the national interest, let's try to be a bit civil here, shall we, lads?
PP
Good.
Indeed, we shall.
So yeah, I'm. Shall I introduce myself?
No.
Okay, kill yourself,
Oh, got that.
Oh fucking hell! Jesus, calm down.
Fucking hell. Squibble.
Scribble for Scribble. Good play
To be
Scribble.
fair,
Why don't we just stream us playing Scribble?
I'm gonna have to
That'd
give you a compliment because this is the most I've actually talked to you without hearing you with a lisp. I'm actually so
No.
your speech therapist.
Oh, this is going to come into a diss track soon or something.
Your speech therapist has a lot to answer for. Good work.
Hey, what can I say? I'm the female Jonathan Ross. Is that how you know?
Ross?
Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Second.
Oh, right, yeah.
You
So
don't even start on that.
yeah, so I don't know. I'm a 18 working as a medical assistant in the Navy. That's pretty much about it. I shitpost on Discord quite a lot.
He really does.
I never got banned off a BN from
What?
it.
On a warship? On Her Majesty's
You got banned
warship?
off British nationalists.
No, I nearly did, but it
Aw.
all got sorted out. It was a good day, actually. It's actually a good server, to be fair. I am going to vouch for it as a good
You
server.
got banned from it.
Try not to dox everyone on it, please.
No, I'm not doxing anyone, but apart from myself.
How's Tony? How's Tony?
Who's Tony again?
No, we can't say his actual. Oh my god.
I don't even know who the fuck Tony is, mate. So you know, no fucking doxing, because I'm gonna be the one who gets in the shit for it.
Should we talk about something or?
Yeah, go on then.
Let's talk about financial instruments. What
Oh,
kind of
no.
financial instruments do you
Mate,
want
the
to
only
discuss?
thing I know how, the only thing I hate about is how a 99p flake doesn't cost 99p. Alright, that's the
know.
main issue.
Thing-
That's all I know about financial
Big
stuff.
issue of our times. We can't. Inflation is the biggest fucking issue our economy is facing at the fucking moment. Like house
Would you like to explain
prices.
further?
House prices are 8 times the living bloody wage. You can't buy a starter home anymore.
Oh,
You're not
God.
going to turn 18 and buy a starter home unless you're like living off unless you get small loan $1 million. And even then, that's like half your fucking the full price of a house now. So
Especially
I
if you
mean,
want to live in the city. Like, an old house that's probably worth about 300,000 in like in a countryside or something is worth like $1 million in big cities or something. It's mad.
It's weird because you need to have some form of like stability now. I mean, I live in a little flat work accommodation, so I'm not too bad for it. But you know, you've got people, especially with COVID now that everyone's jobless and living off of benefits. Well, not benefits, but furloughed. You know, you can't blame them because they've had their businesses butt fucked by the government. But yeah, everyone's going to be a lot more broke, and everyone's sort of waiting for the housing market to crash so they can actually, live somewhere other than a tent.
Yeah, I just saw someone said the pod houses of 2030 will be cheap.
Oh yeah, fucking.
Can't wait to live in a pod.
Mate, I'll stick with my tent actually. I mean, my tent got set on fire, so. Yeah.
Who set it on fire?
I just pissed up with some mates.
Can't
it's all
laugh, I'm sorry.
I need to go buy some hiking gear once shops open up again.
This is just a Discord call now, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I got to say, like, I appreciate Faust just for the reason, like, because everyone's arguing with him, we're not arguing with each other. So it's true. It's true.
So
It's
the
true.
UK could end up with negative interest rates. Ooh, not bad. Kissing, Duke and Faust sitting in a tree. Why is British housing so messed up? Fucking just keeps getting burned down by crackheads.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy! Wait, who?
I think the worst thing about our country, and this is
5 mentions, and I'll ban Colombian. And funny enough, this is the first interaction I've actually had with Ron. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fucking hell, lads.
Byron.
I'm sorry, okay? I was rushing to come on here. I was getting like a ton of people telling me to come on to make a joke of myself, and I've done that.
Well, that's
yeah, you really have.
It's
Oh, I have
39 thumbs up apparently. I've gone up to 753 subs, so thank you.
40 likes.
Mate,
That's-
I'm
Especially
gonna.
like Callum on the stream. That's why.
I wonder if it's
What?
illegal to
Face.
plug my Twitter.
Yes.
do it.
You know, just
Okay,
looking
I'll
at
plug
your
my
face
Twitter,
makes
guys.
you feel like down.
Okay,
You're
guys, follow my
fucking
amazing
kidding.
Twitter. Benefit by Brian, not Byron. Hi, I've got 9 followers, and make that get to at least 10. I'm very sad. Please follow me.
Thank you.
Alright,
I'm probably
thank
just
you.
gonna buy. I might just buy a GoPro and start making fucking hiking videos. Fuck it. Just stupid outdoor.
Lovely
fishing
political talk,
vlogs.
mate.
Fucking yeah, mate.
In all,
I just want to grill fish, innit?
Man just wants to grow.
yeah, true. What are you guys going to be doing after lockdown then? Because
Hiking,
we're free
mate.
now.
Going
now.
back to
Work.
Scotland, hopefully.
Going
Great fun.
to a convention our way. Conventions are a shout actually. I've never actually been to a Comic Con.
What?
Yeah, conventions. No, I'm hiking up down Mount Snowdon at some point once. That'll
You
be
can
late
do that
April.
now. You can do that right now.
No, it's because work. I can't leave like more than 2 hours.
Oh, one thing that sucks is you can't go exercising somewhere that's not local, can't you?
Who's gonna stop me?
True, but like, because I'm a law-abiding citizen, I either have to exercise around where I live, which is full of some very troubling people.
Oh,
Yeah, which is not fun. So I've kind of been locked inside my entire lockdown. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've tried to avoid talking about lockdown this episode, but you know, it's kind of the all-encompassing thing, isn't it? Like, it feels like life has basically been on pause since March 2020, or whenever
oh
it was.
yeah,
Because it has. It has.
it really
Look
has.
around you.
Yeah,
It's gone really quick though, for me at least. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been a year. It feels like it's been a few
mate,
months of horridness. That
I'm nearly. I was 18 when we entered lockdown. I'm nearly 20 now. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
mate, I wasn't even in the fucking forces when we joined fucking lockdown. Started lockdown.
But
No.
basic training was shit.
Nothing actually changed too much apart from because I joined right before the lockdown, so essentially we were still doing the same stuff. We just lost out on some of the like privileges and all that.
Were you doing PT on Zoom calls?
Oh no, that's
Because-
no basic training. We were actually
Because
doing-
that's what my unit's been fucking doing all this fucking lockdown.
Wait, you've
Yeah,
done
yeah.
PT
Your
via Zoom?
military.
Yeah.
How is that even
Fucking
possible?
Grenadier Guards, that's all they're
never
doing
had
now.
to do them. But I'll tell you what, the HMS Rally was actually pretty good for COVID. We barely had any fucking cases.
So how long have you been out at sea then as well?
No, I'm fucking medical. I'm still
you-
in the middle of placement phase.
Were you
Ah.
recruited to the NHS?
Oh yeah, I'm going to a hospital at some point in the next few weeks.
Amazing.
But I've heard a few stories. So when you send a Marine sergeant into a hospital, and some drunk dude starts kicking off with the nurses, you know exactly what's going to start fucking happening. It's like people are gonna. I mean, I'd go fucking cuckoo if someone started attacking my big titty nurse GF, but
All right. Okay. I'm feeling we're hitting the end of our energy for
yeah,
today.
Are we?
I'll just chug another Red Bull or something.
Has anyone else got
mate.
anything to say?
Follow my Twitter. Yeah,
You
I'm
follow
good.
me on Twitter as well.
No.
PA's gay.
Though I haven't been here long, it's been quite fun, and thank you very much for letting a ton
Yeah,
of
cheers
retards
for
in,
having
myself
us, mate.
included.
Cheers for having
Thank you,
me.
Rolek. I'm a really big fan. I saw you on the Mess Squad chat.
Cheers, buddy.
When's the
Appreciate
next
it.
one of this going to be then?
I might do it next Sunday actually.
Oh, nice.
I'll start a YouTube channel. Fuck yes.
What would be on your YouTube channel then, mate?
I don't know. What can I fucking make? Fucking dark
We do
music. I don't
Minecraft
know.
Let's Plays.
Do cooking.
Minecraft Let's
I bet you
Plays.
can make a
Only
banging
if
design.
you only I'll only make Let's Plays if we put our beds together.
You're not
Okay.
going on server. I can guarantee you that.
Guaranteed.
Miscegenation. Anyway, right. Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone for who's come on. Thank you, Columbria, and thank you to Elizabeth. Thank you, Byron. Thank you, of course, Squatty
Brian.
Buckers. Yeah. Well, you've spelled it wrongly, so it's what you deserve. Thanks to the guy who came on and said a swear word and then left. Thanks to my man Ozzy, the economist. I can't speak properly. And also thank you to Louis, the great etymologist, and thank you to someone else. Oh yeah, Strawberry Guy. Watch his streams. He does really good streams. Which much less people watch than this for some reason.
This has just been such good content for you all to watch.
Oh man,
2 hours Discord, 2 hour Discord call.
Better than watching Mark Collette.
Oh yeah, he was
better than watching his Warzone.
Yeah, we've stream cucked him. I think I didn't mean to, but we've taken away his viewers. he had about 60 at peak. I think he only gets like 150. So it's like a
tell
third.
You what, I'm gonna buy a decent headset and see if I can actually start getting into this a bit, because I know my mic sounds like I've been fucking choked by a 7-foot black dude. So.
You're opted.
Guys, we got to keep the stream PG. Come on.
I heard the Fijians are joining in the Royal Navy anyway.
Yeah,
transferring from the army.
Some of the Commonwealth recruits are actually really fucking switched on.
Of course they are.
I know you get the fucking like RLC jokes of. I'm sure you could fill that one in for me, Squad.
Oh yeah, well, we got loads of them. I mean, half the RLCs are made of Commonwealth soldiers from Africa anyway, aren't they?
Well,
they're really good at fitness, but shit at logistics.
I don't know. Some of them should commission though, but it's just, I would happily let some of them commission because they are actually like solid at what they do.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me. But I'm going to go now.
Yeah, I think that should conclude things. We're coming up to 11 o'clock now, so.
I've got to be up at like 6 tomorrow.
All right, okay.
Thank you for coming to this amazing Discord call.
Seeing as it is a Sunday, may the blessing of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you now and forevermore. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone who's come on. May God bless you, and have a very nice evening. Good night.
See you later.